You made it. You had a good time? Whole time, man. When did you finally fall asleep? And you woke up the next day? 8 o'clock the next morning? From 2 p.m.? I slept 11 hours. We just partied all night, Shabbos night. For Tu B'Shvat. We did an all-night meditation. It was very high in meditation. And but the thing is, I had been up since Thursday morning in New York. Flew in Friday, didn't really sleep on the plane. And the next time I went to bed was Saturday night. So I woke up Thursday morning in Muncie, and the next time I hit a bed was I didn't even get to sleep Shabbos day. Yeah, third meal had 53 guests. But I've had the worst jet lag. I've learned one thing about jet lag. You gotta sleep the night you arrived. Don't do an all-nighter the night you arrived. It's the second time I've done it. Okay, the third time I've done an all-nighter. And it really messed me up. Okay, and ladies, you can just close the door. I think we got everybody. Ready, Yaakov Zev?
Yeah, you've been live.
Oh, we're already live?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you're in a movie theater, and in that movie theater, you're watching an old movie called Black Stallion. And in the movie Black Stallion, there's a little boy they're in a shipwreck, and he's shipwrecked, and he winds up with this horse, and they live on some island together. Him and the horse are best friends. They're all they had with one another, and it might be on the volume button, by the way. Eventually they find the boy, and they bring the boy and his horse to America. But meanwhile, that horse was this big black stallion that was supposed to be traded as for races. It was supposed to be for horse races. And the horse race people, got wind that the horse actually is alive, and it made it to America, but it belongs to this boy, and they decided they're going to steal it. And one night they did steal it, and the boy realizes his horse is gone. And this is like his only friend in the world. And I don't think he even had family. I don't know. Did he have parents? I think his family died in the shipwreck. I don't know. Anyway, right?
Yeah, they died.
All he had was the horse. And now the horse is gone. The boy is inconsolably crying. Now, if you saw this in the theater, guess what you're doing?
Crying.
You're crying. But you're really crying. And of course you're a little embarrassed you're crying, so you start like looking around at people next to you, make sure they don't notice. What are they doing?
Crying.
They're crying. Everybody's crying. And but imagine that you start saying to the person sitting next to you, the friend you went to the movie with, you're like, who's going to console the boy? And your friend's like, what? What'd you say? Who's going to console the boy? Who's going to take care of the boy? And your friend's like, what are you talking about? The boy. Like, who's going to take care of the boy? And your friend's like, be quiet. Who's gonna care for this boy? And your friend's like, be quiet. You're like, what about the boy? And your friend's like, shh, the boy. Somebody's got to take care of the boy. And now everyone around you is going like, shh, the boy. Who's gonna take care of the boy? And people are like, shut up. And someone's got to take care of the boy. And you jump out of your chair and you run down the whole theater all the way to the front. Go flying into the boy to pick him up, and you just go like. And everyone in the room's like, whoa. They stop the film, they turn on the lights, this guy's yelling down from the projection room, what's going on down there? You're just like, walking back to your seat. Okay, I'm sure that never happened to you. You did cry. You've cried in movies. Why'd you cry in the movie? Why'd you cry in the movie? I mean, did you somehow forget this is a Hollywood movie? Did you forget that, this is just some coke addict's creative way of entertaining people? Probably lives in Beverly Hills or something. Like, did you forget this is just someone's imagination? And the answer is yes. Convincing acting, convincing film making, convincing directing, and very convincing music. And they play just the right stuff, get the right angles, that high resolution film. They fooled you, didn't they? Okay, but not so much that you get up and go try to hug the kid. They didn't fool you that much, but they fooled you enough to cry. This world here is 3D. This is 3D. It's so much more real here. And I have a feeling that everyone in this room, myself included, sometimes, have been hugging the screen. We've all been hugging the screen. We've all fallen into it. And we forget sometimes that this movie is being directed from above. It is the figment of the imagination of a creator who is organizing, arranging, orchestrating everything. And when we forget, we lose our well-being. And when we remember, we regain our well-being. When we forget that it's all being orchestrated, so then we are kind of on a roller coaster ride, a white-knuckled ride. And when we remember, we are at peace. Because there's really nothing for us to worry about. We don't have to think about much because everything's being arranged, everything's being orchestrated. Let me give you an example. Everyone's sitting in this room. You're only in this room because you chose to come to Israel, I imagine, unless we got any Israelis in the room. I think all of you chose to be in Israel, right? Wrong. How many factors were involved when it finally came time to choose to come here? Who had to know who? Who had to call who? Who had to be where, when, why, how, what? What happened exactly? That the microphone finally hit your mouth and you said, I'm coming. How many factors were involved? How much orchestration was involved before you finally made the choice? And then you made that choice. Yeah, you said, I'll go. Or I'm going. Or I'm calling a travel agent and buying tickets, but I'm going. At which point, you went like this. Nothing like the power of free will. And meanwhile, God's laughing because God orchestrated every last detail. There was no other choice at that point. There was no other choice. It was a 100%. If your life was a Las Vegas show, everyone would have won that bet that you were coming here, and the proof is here you are. The 3D nature of this world, though, is a very tricky thing, and we get tricked into it all the time. Our goal is to make the basis of our sanity God, but probably for all of us, the basis of our sanity is this world. God is like a kind of a spiritual option we think about sometimes. And, like, for example, coming to this class is like trying to find out more about God, understanding more about God. But it's kind of like, like if you have 3 doors to choose from, God's like door number 3. I mean, how would you guys do if you walked out of where you stayed, where you woke up this morning? Imagine you walked out from where you woke up this morning, and instead of finding yourself on the street that you went to sleep on, you found yourself in a Egyptian Cairo shuk, and someone's pushing a wheel cart like full speed ahead, and the second you get out, he just screams, "Look out!" in Arabic, which I think is Dir Balak. Yeah, all you hear is Dir Balak, and you just jump back into your apartment, and you find yourself sliding down a a slide that goes deeply and deeply, further and further down, deeper and deeper and deeper into the earth. And then finally you come out the other side and you're like, you're in a rice paddy in Thailand, in a monsoon, pouring rain. Now, would you say you've gone insane? Would you say you've gone insane at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you something. You're insane now. If all that happened, you'd definitely be insane. But you're insane now without all of that. Because what you've called sanity is that everything was in place this morning. You woke up at the place you were supposed to be. You walked out on the street of the address you went to bed in, and everything looked normal. But what I'd like you to do when you walk out of this classroom today is I'd like you to feel like you're walking on the inside of the mind of God, like you're somehow in the corridors of God's mind. In fact, this room is one of the chambers in the mind of God. For example, you probably think I'm speaking English. Sounds like English, doesn't it? Is this English? Yaakov Zev, is this English? Not a word of English being spoken by me. There's a lot of mathematics. These are all vibrations. Those vibrations are shooting across the chamber. This chamber in the mind of God, it's shooting across vibrationally. You probably think there's space between us. There's no space between us. That's air. Air is made of stuff. It's all part of it. There is no empty space. All space is full. And what do you think the vibrations are? These vibrations, what do you think they're shooting across? Space. Shooting across the air. The air is carrying it. It's being carried across the room. The vibrations are hitting a tympanic membrane inside your head. It's called an eardrum. And it's beating on that drum at thousands of beats per minute. Thousands and thousands. Massive amounts of mathematics are hitting your brain. And it's basically going off via audio nerves into your neurons, and then your neurons either fire or don't fire. They're also digital, purely digital. And the ones and zeros that are neurons, firing or not firing, it's ones and zeros, all networked together, it's binary code, is recreating these vibrations as English. But I'm not speaking in English. And I know you think you're looking at me right now, and I think I am me right now, but I'm not me, and you're not seeing me. You're seeing vibrational energy. And all of this is part of the mind of God in this chamber called this classroom, which is also within the mind of God. And because what I'm saying is true, that's our basis for sanity, not what you were thinking was the basis for sanity. Because what I'm saying is true, that's our basis for sanity. Was that an audacious statement to say because what I'm saying is true? Do you want me to prove it? You don't want me to prove it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll prove it very quickly. Before there was something, there was nothing, right? What does nothing make?
Nothing.
Nothing. So since before there was something, there was nothing, and now that there's something, so this something had to have come from nothing. But nothing doesn't make anything, unless of course that nothing is what? No?
God.
God.
Which is something.
Something we'll never conceive of, because it's not made of anything. And that nothing, meaning God, that created the something, what did it use? If all there was God, what did it use to create the world? What did it make the world out of?
Himself.
Himself, that's all there was. We come from it. We're coming from that nothing. So that nothing, which obviously has some kind of consciousness, intent, it has ability, it has control, we don't call it almighty for nothing. Like, it makes the world from itself. How does it do so? It does so via what's called in Kabbalah Chachma Bin and Das, which is called intelligence. And guess what ones and zeros are? What's another term for that in science?
Binary.
Well, yeah, but it's called intelligence. We're coming from an intelligent being, and the whole entire world is made of that intelligence. So you're ultimately inside a chamber in the mind of God, and if you walk outside in the hall, you're in another chamber in the mind of God. You've never been anywhere but the mind of God your entire life. And it's just fascinating that he's so interested in you that he orchestrates everything around you. And me. In fact, I'm getting orchestrated for you. Like, do I even have free will right now? Because aren't I being orchestrated here for you? And also, everything I'm saying is exactly what you need to hear. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here right now. So, like, meaning I look at some of you and just say, like, this is not the content for this person. But the fact is, that's the content of this class. And God has perfectly orchestrated you being here. Which either means you need to get turned on to the mind of God and be more connected to it, A, or B, you are overly connected to this world and you had to hear a class on how you've been living in an illusion and that it's making you unwell. As I said at the very beginning, the more in touch with reality you are, the more well you'll be, the more you let God run the show, the more you relinquish your control, which is really coming from the fear of being out of control, which probably comes from your childhood because someone was controlling you. You don't want to be controlled, so you're trying to assert control. And the best way to assert control is to have control over your environment, which means you have to understand the environment. But what I was saying was we don't understand the environment because the environment's actually in the mind of God. And God's got it all buttoned up, doesn't need your help whatsoever. No help, thank you. Now that doesn't mean you don't need to collect addresses to send weddings for invitations to your kids' weddings. And it doesn't mean you don't have to send them. You do have to send them, and you've got to stamp those envelopes. You know, you're going to have to make a living and pay your bills, but that's just our pleasure because God gave us the ability to do something, at least for 6 days a week. Comes Shabbos, God's like, let's stop pretending. Let's stop pretending you're doing anything here. Let's just be in love. Okay, I gave you 6 days to go knock yourself out. Knock yourself out for 6 days. Pretend you actually did something. Pretend they're actually going to remember you 100 years from now. Think anyone's going to remember you 100 years from now? No. The answer is, everybody?
No.
No. They're not going to remember me either. Tell me one thing. Let's see, 100 years ago would have been your great-great-great-grandparents. They would have been meaning they would have been doing what you're doing around this age, meaning where you're pumping out some kind of something that's going to make a difference. So let's say it's your great-great-great-grandparents. Name one of them. Someone name me. Even their name. He's going to do it. You got a great-great-great?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Levy.
What?
Shmuel Levy, because he has the shul by the show.
Oh, that was your great-great-great-grandfather?
Oh.
With the Zarei Chama.
Yeah.
That was your great-great-great-grandfather. Amazing, I've prayed there a million times. It's my favorite minyan.
I'm named after his grandson.
You know why it's my favorite minyan?
There's so many there.
Because I always think of it whenever I think of the Reform and Conservative changing the prayer book. It upsets me because I'm also a Reform and Conservative rabbi. And did I tell you guys I'm also a Reform and Conservative rabbi? Yeah, I just recently figured this out because I figured Reform do this much, Conservative do this much, Orthodox do this much, so I'm automatically Reform and Conservative. It upsets me that they changed the prayer book. You know why? Because in the place where his great-great-great-grandfather, his synagogue, is a place where you can pray. You literally stand shoulder to shoulder. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rooms. You stand shoulder to shoulder, packed. You pray like this. You got to all rock at the same time. But you're shoulder to shoulder with a Yemenite who's next to a soldier, who's next to a guy from India, who's next to a Moroccan, who's next to an Iraqi, who's next to a Chassid, who's next to a Litvak, who's next to... It's every single kind of Jew. Every single kind of Jew. Rich guy, poor guy. You know, everyone's in there. And we all agree. on how prayers are supposed to be said, no matter where you're from. So don't change it up. It's one of the last things we have in common. Don't mess with that. It's Jewish unity. Right? Part of unity is sharing commonality. And the one thing universal is the way we pray. Don't mess with that. Can you guys all say that's right? 1, 2, 3.
That's
right.
Okay, but first I'm going to say, ain't that right? Ain't that right? All together, ain't that right?
Ain't that right?
No, you're supposed to say, that's right.
Oh, dang it.
I'm going to say, ain't that right? You go, that's right. 1, 2, 3. Ain't that right?
That's right.
We'll try to keep that going. Now, that was a total digression. I apologize. I have to rant once in a while. I'm a rabbi. Part of being a rabbi is you get to rant once in a while. Now, in the late 1960s, there was in the laboratories, there were it was actually, in the 1950s, a lab scientist spilled something on his hand, went home that day. He didn't, he washed his hand off and he went home that day. He was just doing experiments. Anyway, that night he wasn't able to sleep because his eyes wouldn't shut, and he was having all kinds of realizations about himself, and about his marriage, and about his family, and about his children, and about life, and about the nature of things, and about love, about interconnectedness of seemingly disparate subjects, and I mean, a major epiphanous night that went on for 12 hours straight. Well, as soon as he sobered up, he ran back to the lab and he grabbed whatever spilled on his hand and he said, "This is something very special. This is something very special." And he, yes, it was called LSD. There's a couple who's a little older than I am back here that immediately looked at each other lovingly and said LSD. So, anyway, he ran back to the lab, captured as much of the stuff he could, isolated it, looked at it, and next thing you know, it's being experimented with by therapists, and it becomes one of the biggest breakthroughs in the therapy, maybe in all of history of therapy. People becoming well in a matter of a session or two, but really becoming well. Major ailments that today are treated by what I like to call the war on drugs. Major ailments treated by the war on drugs. You might be wondering why I'm saying major ailments, emotional, psychological ailments being treated by the war on drugs, is that the war on drugs made the stuff that actually works illegal and then started giving people the stuff that doesn't work. And then you have to take it the rest of your life, which is a fortune and is driving $1 billion industry. So all those drugs are brought to you by the war on drugs. Trillion? No. Pharmacology business for emotional issues? I think it's billions. I don't know if it's trillion, but it's a lot. So that's all brought to you by the war on drugs. I recently found a snuff. I found a snuff from the Amazon. You know what snuff is? Like tobacco. Like we do it in shul, Me'ashari. I always have a little snuff box on me. There's a snuff from the Amazon. That, thank God, it's not illegal. And it gets rid of any headache. Migraine's gone, but instantly. What is it called? Not Parkinson's. What's the one that people go a little crazy?
Threats.
Alzheimer's patients are also having much relief of their insanity on this snuff. Brought to you by the Amazon. Don't let the war on drugs people know about this. This is like, I shouldn't even be saying this live, because here comes the war on drugs. How dare you get rid of a headache without Tylenol and Advil, which of course attacks your liver. This stuff has zero consequence, besides just getting rid of your headache. It also helps you cry your eyes out over the actual emotions that are causing the headache, because headaches are not physical things. Headaches are purely emotional. Anyone here have a headache? No, there's a headache. So a scale 1 to 10, how much is your headache?
7.
Yours?
8.
Okay, you won. Okay, you ready? You want to get rid of it? Eyes, That's open eyes. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. And just keep breathing, your eyes closed. Very good. Go ahead and fall asleep. Okay, don't sleep, just keep your eyes closed and breathe. Okay? Now, what part of your head is that headache on? Oh, it's temples? Yeah.
You opened your eyes.
Yeah, I'm jumping in the scene here.
Don't turn it that way.
Oh yeah?
Alright, what's the big deal? You look so handsome. Usually men love getting filmed. It's the women who don't like it. Okay, breathe, deep breaths. Relax your face.
You can.
Yeah, you can. There you go, that's better. That's better. Other hand. Whoa. Yeah, there it is. Feel that burger? Notice there was no burger on the other side. Breathe deep, this is gonna hurt. Bigger exhales. Really release it. There's a lot of pressure up there. You're feeling a lot of pressure. So it's pressure on you, and you're gonna just keep releasing it. Feel how my fingers now are starting to touch? Feel I went through the burger? Okay, keep breathing. Big exhales, like, open your mouth. Yeah, there you go. Don't act it out. No acting. We don't need any acting. Just be yourself. Looking and look good. You can't look good at this point. I mean, I got your eyes closed in front of all these people. I'm squeezing your finger, and you're on Facebook Live. I mean, there's nothing's gonna look good at this point, you know. So just let it go. There's still a little bit there. You feel that? Let that go. With exhales. A little more. There it goes. Feel that? There it goes. Very good. How's your head?
Better.
Fully better?
I need some snuff.
Just release. You still haven't really given a big exhale. There you go. That's better. Yeah. Do it again without the acting. Just. How's that? How's your head now?
Good.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Headache?
Getting there.
Not there. Okay, understand.
Wait, mine's a 9 actually.
What?
Mine's actually a 9.
Yeah. Where's yours? Same place?
More the back of my head actually.
How's it now?
Very good.
How you doing?
I have to pay 400 shekel for this.
It's 800.
Just want the age more often.
How you feel?
Very good.
Okay,
Very good.
That's the easy one. Temples are easy. Just comes from tension, but again, there was nothing in his head. Believe me, if we put his head on a brain scan, you're not going to find a headache. I don't think they've ever found a headache on a brain. You know, they just don't exist in there. But boy, have I met people having headaches, like they're ready to bash their head into the wall. They want to jump out of a building, land on their head. Just, oops, I shouldn't talk about that. Wrong place to mention that. So now, anyway, but none of those headaches exist. So forget the war on drugs. We're back to this. Now, what happened was it was being used for therapy, and everything was cool. And it was making great strides, lots of research, things were going wonderfully. And then all of a sudden, it got released publicly by accident, kind of. And next thing you know, every kid in high school was on the stuff. It turned out it's not just good for therapy, but it's really good for rock concerts. It had a separate use, rock concerts, and parties in giant parks, and every other kind of use. So suddenly it was a party drug, and now, which was also legal. I mean, it wasn't illegal. Don't forget, what's the second commandment of? What's the first of the? What's the one? Life, liberty, and
Freedom.
Yeah, what was that called? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What is that part of?
Constitution.
Is that part of the Constitution or the Declaration?
The preamble.
It didn't get a number. No one knows
Second
where that.
Amendment?
You don't know.
No.
Realms.
Yeah.
Someone Google what the. It's so funny. A whole room full of Westerners, and no, I myself included. I'm quoting it. I don't know where it's from. It's a commandment. It's an amendment.
It's the preamble.
Oh wow, I was right.
Preamble of the Constitution.
Yeah.
What is the words? How does it go?
Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is a well-known phrase in the Declaration of Independence.
Declaration of Independence. By the way, please remind me afterwards. There's a rabbi here who's had some hard knocks, and we feed his family every Shabbos. This class, meaning whatever we give is what he eats. So 10 shekels, 20 shekels, 30 shekels. He usually gets a few hundred from us by the time we're all tapped out. But just remind me at the end of class, give him whatever you got. Give him whatever you got.
I'll go for that.
It says there's 3 rights given by God that the government's supposed to create to protect.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Anyway, what I'm talking about was legal. It was perfectly legal, and everyone's having a great time. But there was one major problem, and it was called the Vietnam War. And when people felt the interconnectedness, which is the true interconnectedness of all things, because of the beginning of this class, is everything's totally interconnected. Everything's being totally orchestrated. You are me, I am you, we are all one. And we are all ultimately one with God. Which is why all of Judaism has all those commandments. For example, giving tzedakah is you are me, I am you. Circumcision is cutting the part of the body where someone is the most locked into the screen, most hugging the screen, where the most selfishness takes place. Every holiday, Pesach's the freedom from Egypt, which was like a total mind clamp. Hanukkah, we celebrate against the Greeks who worship only the physical world, meaning the opposite of interconnectedness of all things. And where all of Judaism, no matter where you point, shofar blast on Rosh Hashanah is a wake-up call from your having lost your connection to the interconnectedness of all things. Everything. Your over-attachment to your house is sukkahs. Yom Kippur cleans you of your over-attachment to physicality. Tefillin for men straps down the man who otherwise tries to mark every lamppost he walks by thinking someone's going to remember him 100 years from now. He has to actually strap himself down. He's got to subdue or subject himself to God. This interconnectedness is the point of everything. But what happened was the Vietnam War came, and they went up to President Nixon. They said, President Nixon, we got a problem. And Nixon said, what's the problem? He says, I don't know, there's something going on with all the teenagers, especially the 18-year-olds. They're all like blissed out. They're having a great time. They're pursuing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They seem to be happy. But they're burning their draft cards. They don't want to go kill people thousands of miles away for some proxy war that we think is important, that we're losing. So they don't want to fight. They don't want to go kill Vietnamese people in their ancestral lands. They think we should be leaving the Vietnamese alone. Let them determine their own fate. And so Nixon said, what do you want me to do about it? And they said, well, why don't you sign this piece of paper here and make what they're doing illegal? Okay. And they actually have a video of Nixon signing this piece of paper. Signs a piece of paper, and next thing you know, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, at least as far as, this particular chemical that seemed to only help people, was illegal. And so you know what happened was the people who were most into it were the biggest geniuses who were into it. We were talking like certified geniuses. They said, oh, it's illegal? Oh, okay, we'll find something else to do. Guess what they found to do? You ever heard of a personal computer? It was before all our iPhones. I think they called it a PC for short. Personal computer. You know what they did? They developed something called a personal computer. And the government was like, oh great, looks like they got something else to do. Fine, we can leave them alone. And they created a personal computer. I happen to own one at one point. You ever own one of those things? With the floppy disks and stuff? I remember, you want to know how much my computer had? It had 4 megabytes of memory.
It was a lot.
It was a lot, yeah.
It was 100.
You had less?
The big one was 124 gigabytes.
Kilobytes?
de Commodore 64 and early 80s.
I remember though, I got what's something called a RAM doubler. That was very exciting. I got a RAM. Yeah, did you have a RAM doubler? I had a RAM doubler. Suddenly I had 8, but not. It didn't run the same.
It was the Apple II GS.
Yeah.
That's what I had.
A RAM doubler. So I had 8 megabytes on my personal computer. It was giant. It was like, you know, it took up quite some space. So the government was just like, okay, let them have some fun. Except what happened? Then it was 16, then it was 32, then it was 56, then it was 128, then it was getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you got on this thing here. Where's my phone? Oh no, there it is. All of a sudden you got 128 gigabytes. And I'm basically done with this one, so I need now to buy the 7 at 250 gigabytes because I don't own a personal computer.
Get a Samsung. No, iPhone.
No, iPhone
I'm the
is-
kind of guy, I think I got to stick with the iPhone
Yeah.
just because of various reasons that I'm not going to bring up. Anyway, but I don't think it should be called iPhone. I think it should be called their phone because of all their incredible, ridiculous strictures around it compared to the Android or whatever you call it, where it's actually your phone. This should have been called the iPhone, and that should have been called the their phone. Anyway, and then it got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it's just this little thing. Although then it got bigger and bigger because people wanted bigger screens. And now I'm in power. Who's in power now? The power went back to the people. The power went back to the pursuit of happiness. The power went back to every individual making a difference. The power went back to interconnectedness of all people. The power went back. You can take down governments with these things. Egypt down, Libya down, Syria down. Just knock out whole countries with these things. People named their kids Facebook in Egypt. After they took Egypt down, people actually named their newborn child Facebook because of the revolution that took place. This is power. Do you believe I could type in a text message now on this phone, send it, and people would be here within 30 seconds? All right, I don't know what those keywords would be, but type it in the wrong thing. I wouldn't say 30 seconds because we're in the old city, but I guess from the police department to here would take
There's
about.
one right there.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay. I'm sending a private text message to somebody, but with the wrong words, it would take about a minute. And come up here. Why? Why? What happened to the freedom? What happened to the access? What happened to the interconnectedness? What happened to the freedom and the power of human individuality? Answer is that the government realized that when they let those hippies create PCs, that it wasn't going to be PC. It wasn't going to be politically correct because it gave too much power to the people. And hence, we've been in a race. There's a race going on between the individual and the governments. We're in a race. Who's going to win the race? Scary thought, scary question. I know what you're all thinking. It's going to be hard to win it. I don't know who's winning between Google or Apple and the rights of the individual. Who's better at that between the two? Anyone know? I know Apple's been fighting a pretty good fight. Remember the terrorist attack in LA and they refused to crack the code on the phone? Mm-hmm. So that's been going on all the years. That was just the first time it kind of went public. I mean, the government's been fighting with these organizations ever since they developed powerful enough personal computers to realize that now the individual's gotten his power back. To wrap all of this up, because you're probably wondering what in the world is going on in this classroom. To wrap all of this up, we are inside the mind of God. Everything is completely and totally interconnected. There's no space or time. All of this is inside the mind of God, and it is our basis for sanity, not this physical world. There's tremendous interconnectedness. We are tremendously safe. You've never been so safe because everything is on direct drive from the maker into creation. And everything you do go through, and you will go through stuff, is all perfectly directed towards you. There's nothing random, just like the subject of this class was not random, nor is anything you go through random. It is all part of a greater plan that will help massage your character to perfection if you don't fight it. If you fight it, so you'll spend your life fighting it. But if you let your life circumstances actually massage your character, because your character and your soul need to be at one. So many of us have our souls and then we have our character. It's totally like you're two people. You have your neshama and then you have your character. Now there is a reality to it. I totally get that. You know. Yeah.
Does our character stay with us in Gan Eden or whatever?
Not at all. It's one of the reasons why it's so important to have your character be as much soul-oriented as, meaning you're soul-oriented as possible. Because it's going to be more painful when you die to realize your character was just a figment of the ego. It was not actually who you are.
So true character would stay, and it's an independent thing from the soul.
Yeah, but it can be totally aligned with it. But yeah, we all have characters. We're all characters. I'm a total character. And I have a soul, and I do my best. I'm not there. I'm nowhere near there. Of having my character aligned with my soul, but I'm each week I feel like I'm closer. It's interesting. My wife and I were not raised observant, and we raised our kids extremely uniquely. Like our kids are very unique, and but meanwhile they have souls, and each of those kids has a soulmate in this world that they're supposed to marry. Now, if they marry into a cookie-cutter family, but they're not cookie-cutter characters, my kids, so they'd have their soulmate. The souls would be united, but the characters would be totally disparate. It would be like they wouldn't even know what to talk about. They wouldn't get along. You understand? There would be so little in common with the person they married, because most people's characters are very different than the souls. So you marry your soulmate, but your characters are different. Doesn't sound like fun. So you'll notice with each of my kids, as though we're coming time for weddings, and we've already made one, that God's got this whole different plan for my kids, for the kid. Even though my kids were raised in Me'asharim shuls, they're all Yiddish-speaking, like full-on Me'asharim kids. Because of the unique upbringing, I notice now that it's time to marry them off, each one's got a very unique thing going on when it's time for marriage. Why? Because the character and the soul are two different things. So they can marry their soulmate, but wind up lonely. Because God wants you not only to marry your soulmate, but He also wants you to have a fun time, have a good character, to someone you get along with. And that's why we're all going through the stuff we go through to get married. It's because everything you're going through that's totally off the charts compared to where you were supposed to be, probably based on your upbringing with some of you, is because God doesn't want you to be lonely. You could have married some cookie-cutter Lakewood girl, right? You were trapped that way. You would have been lonely. You had a whole different thing going on. And so God sent you all these different directions so you wouldn't be lonely in your marriage. And then in your marriage, then you connect, and you connect, and you'll connect, and you'll shave off whatever's not you, and you'll grow into what is you, only coming to this kind of perfection, which will take place over the years of your marriage, as you shed the ego and grow into the true character of your soul, which is not your soul. The character is character, and the soul is soul. But God wants us to be connected. Now, for a lot of Bali Tshuva, that's very disappointing, because when they take all the moves I did, most Bali Tshuva who do the moves I did, their dream is to have one of these little what's the word I'm looking for? Hermetically sealed sanitary weddings. They want a sanitary shidduch where everything matched up on paper, it was perfect, everything was great, and we put them together in Mazel Tov. Every Baal Tshuva wants that for their kids. Except, is that a service to their children who are raised unique in their home?
No.
Not a service. And probably a recipe for serious stuff, serious issues. So it's very nice at my age right now to just watch Hashem do his thing for each of my kids. Let him do his thing. So these characters, they need someone to spend their lives with. It's not enough just to be soulmates. Have a great day in the mind of God, everybody, and let's get connected to reality this week. Couple announcements. Number one, tzedakah goes to Yaakov Zev for the rabbi outside, who we pay for his Shabbos meals. Anyone, by the way, who's watching online, I guess email me, yomtovglaser@gmail. Email me if you'd like to. It's just my name at Gmail. If you'd like to help this guy on Fridays to buy Shabbos food. Next thing is third meal by me. First time in a long time we're having an open third meal. It's always a fun time. Hanetziv 11. Hanetziv 11. Hanatziv 11. 5:20 is washing. Everyone's invited. And it's a real experience with a musical Havdalah every week. Break out often a nice sized band. Although I don't know if my son's going to be on drums this week. I think not. Next event is tonight. I have a co-ed event. There will be a mechitza there. This is going to be at the Dushinsky Yeshiva. Anyone want a flyer for the event? Okay, pass these around, please, if you don't mind. I'll catch them on the other end of the room, if you already got one. Here's one more. I have an event tonight, 52 Shmuel Navi. It's it's in town. Men and women are invited. And this is going to be a special evening, and it's an introduction to the Possible You Seminar, which begins this coming week. All the information's online, thepossibleyou.org, which is on this piece of paper. Thepossibleyou.org, and we just put 2 more seminars online. They're going to be in Brooklyn, March 19th in Borough Park, please God. We'll have men's and women's seminars in Borough Park, and this Sunday begins a women's seminar at 9:30 in the morning. It's going to be every day, 6 days straight, and the men's begins at 7 p.m. nightly, also in Dushinsky. The address for the seminar is wrong on your flyer. It's going to be in Dushinsky. All week long, it's going to be in the original address. The address of the intro tonight is the address next week for men, and the women's is going to be number 5 Haturim. If anyone wants to try it out on Sunday, please write down on the other side of your piece of paper, number 5 Haturim, 9:30 a.m. And you can also just try out the first day and decide after that if you want on Sunday. Also, men can come. If you can't come tonight, you can come try it out on Sunday. I think I'm done with announcements. We got tzedakah, third meal, tonight's event, and Sunday's seminar.